Dennis Buziak, and I'm the director of curriculum, responsible for the program this evening. And this evening you'll hear over 1,119 musicians from our 12 elementary schools and 3 middle schools under the direction of our 11 excellent music teachers. I would also like to mention that at the close of this evening's concert, down at the exit at the far end of the field, you will be able to purchase a video of the concert tonight. Should you be interested, and they'll take your orders down there. At this time, I'd like to introduce Dr. Jack Rankin, Superintendent of the Covina Valley Unified School District. Dr. Rankin.
Thank you, Dennis. Welcome to all of you. This is the 8th Instrumental Music Festival we've had, and each year it's got bigger and bigger, both numbers of students, and we thank all of you for coming. You proud parents who put up with all the practice. Right? It's silver here. You have to drive and take those lessons, but will all the music teachers come out here, please? In the middle, please. You know, you can always, as a parent, hope your student plays a musical instrument. You can sometimes ask them to play a musical instrument, but you can't make them play a musical instrument. You can encourage all you want, and you can get them to school and sign them up, but if they don't want to, and they aren't encouraged, and they aren't really encouraged to play and practice and perform, it's just not going to happen, or it's going to happen for a very short time. I played the trumpet for 4 weeks. I still have the radio that we traded the trumpet back in for. It was a great trade. But the reason that we have 1,119 kids out here tonight, and the reason you're here tonight to see them perform, is because of these ladies and gentlemen that you have before you, and I just want everyone to give them a collective hand and say thank you very much. The elementary folks travel between 4 schools, 3 schools each. The intermediate and the high school have classes going during the day. And between them, they have these instrumental students who have grown from almost 600 plus to 1,100 plus, and it's because of them. So it's because of them tonight. We salute you. I thank you personally for all you have done and made this music program the outstanding program that it is. And we thank you, and we look forward to the next concert. Again, I know you will too. Enjoy yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rankin. To open our program this evening, we feature our 564-member elementary band under the direction of Mr. Scott Smith, music teacher at Mark Allen, Mesa, and Workman, as we present Freedom's March. the resurgence of Star Wars fever and the great music of John Williams, under the direction of his English grammar, music teacher Branka, Covina, Al, and Merwin, join with us as we bring you a galactic episode. Seated to your left, we now feature the combined 338-member middle school band, grades 6 through 8, under the direction of Ms. Nina Paul, music director at Ross Palmas Middle School, in a melodic, dramatic, and flowing piece, Rustic Overture. Under the direction of Mr. George Barber, music director at South Hills High School, we present a staple of our band literature, a vigorous driving and lighting work with energetic brass fanfares and legato woodwind passages. To your right, the combined 217-member high school band with overture in B. Flat. Excuse me. funny little thing in the flat.
Southfield, look at me. Southfield, look at me.
Next, the elementary band plays a majestic and powerful work which heralds in the approach of the 21st century. Under the direction of Mr. Mark Tavares, music teacher at Cyprus, Roland, and Valencia, we present Apollo Overture. Just like the practice with most of the home on itself. Australia is rich in folk music, and Eric Osterling has successfully combined 23 Australian tunes together. Under the direction of Mr. Brian Bittner, music teacher at Trawick Middle School, we present Australian Rhapsody. one request I am going to make. So I know how much we like to get pictures of our children. So I'm going to ask you to please, though, refrain from coming down on the field and taking pictures and walking around. It's, the camera's already out here on the field, so we appreciate your cooperation with that. Commissioned for the coronation of King George VI, and first performed at the coronation ceremony in 1937, the high school band's next work is a true classic British march. Under the direction of Mr. Sean Amberlin, music director of Northview High School, we present Crown Imperial. In 1951, Alan Freed coined the phrase rock and roll. And the most popular rock and roll song of the 50s was performed by Bill Haley and the Comets called Rock Around the Clock. The elementary band's last tune is under the direction of Mrs. Sharon Caffey, music teacher at Van Loman, Grove Center, and Manzanita, with Rock Around the Clock. The middle school bands will often work utilizing the folk setting that reflects on the beauty and history of the Blue Ridge Mountains of North Carolina. Under the direction of Mr. Dwight Asbury, music director of Sierra Vista Middle School, we present Blue Ridge Saga.
Right, guys.
The high school's last work is based on an event in the life of Bonnie Prince Charlie. He had returned to Scotland and was gathering about it when already heading south towards England, which had sent Sir John Cope to fight with him. The traditional folk song Johnny Cope is the basis of all the themes in this work. Charlie attacked the English at Prestonpans outside Edinburgh. This is represented by battle, with the themes, piers, as fanfares, and battle shrieks. There followed a period of mourning as the English had been massacred. Lament, in which the theme is fragmented into long, sustained phrases. The Scots rejoiced and celebrated in Edinburgh. Dance, where the original theme is used as a reel. Under the direction of Mr. Rich Jadrich, music director of Covina High School, we present The King Across the Water. Before our last two combined elementary, middle school, and high school district numbers, we'd like to recognize the many people who are responsible for tonight's performance. You have the privilege of seeing the culmination of the efforts of the people that are out here performing. But I can't begin to tell you how many people behind the scenes help make a concert like this possible. First of all, we'd like to recognize the members of the Board of Education who are here with us this evening. Mr. Richard Beck, Dr. Barry Haynes, Charles Kemp, Mr. William Knoll, and Mr. Joe Longobardo. They would stand to the loud, please. Another person who has been very instrumental in support of the music program is our district superintendent, who is leading us and going on to bigger and better things, perhaps music concert someplace else. Dr. Rankin, thank you for your support of the music program. I'd like to extend a special thank you to all the Covina Valley Unified School District personnel who made tonight's performance possible. And that's all the maintenance people who deliver chairs and set up sound systems and all of those things. Give them a nice round of applause. Once again, I'd like to thank and have you recognize all the music teachers from each of the individual schools. Music teachers. Who probably does as much to pull this concert together as anyone involved in it, and keeps me sane in the process is my secretary, Kat Chavaria. Kat, would you stand and sing aloud? We'd also like to thank all our area principals, administrators, teachers, and staff who support the music program in the district. We'd like to extend a special thank you to you parents for your continued support in the process of the education of your children. You saw what I've done so far. And before we have our last two numbers, a very special round of applause for the most important people here tonight, your sons and daughters for the hard work on the field of the day. Catherine these days was so inspired when she stood on the top of Pikes Peak and looked all around that she sat down and wrote a beautiful poem. Years later, Samuel Ward found the poem and wrote the music to her poem that almost became our national anthem in 1980. Ladies and gentlemen, before you sit our 1,119 musicians, please join them in their first combined number, America the Beautiful. most prolific movie composers of our time is John Williams, composer of Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Armistead, E.T., and Jurassic Park, to name but a few. He was commissioned to write the theme song to the 1984 and 1988 Olympic Games, and each have been used for each winter and summer games since. Please join the Covina Valley Unified School District Band in their final song, the 1988 Olympic theme song, The Olympic Spirit.
Oh, that was so fun. Now, tails, before you put anything away, see me over there, right now, please.